will be about 60 to 70% of the final exam. So we're going to go through the first half, so you should have relative ease looking at it, but then the second half will be a little bit more focused. All right, so we start with chapter 2. We'll look at the major concepts from chapter 2, and please stop me. I'm going to ask you some questions, but if you're not sure about something, let's have that discussion. So, personality and its role in influencing organizational behavior. Now, we talked about personality in a general sense, but what we're really interested in is how do certain personalities fare? How do they perform in certain organizational settings? So ultimately, what OD strives to do is use these various models to predict what may happen or how people may act. So always think of it from a business, a work, and organizational context. The whole point of it is to try to understand if these are the facets or these are the characteristics of a particular concept or a particular dimension. How can that help me predict what is likely to happen down the road with a particular individual or a particular group or a situation? So, we look at personality and its role, how it influences organizational behavior. There are various ways of looking at it. We look at the dispositional, situational, and interactionist approach. What is dispositional? Personal. Okay, relies on personal characteristics, intrinsic to an individual. Okay, we believe something is dispositional, a person's behavior is based on their disposition. It means we believe that it's based on who they are and particular character traits that they possess. If we believe in a situational approach, we think that just situation, just the environment will affect how they behave. Meaning, right, from a predictive perspective, anybody put in a similar situation will behave the same way. Okay? So if you have a situational approach or a situational view. Interactionist is both. It takes a little bit of personality and a little bit of environmental factors. All right? Trait activation. Anybody remember what trait activation theory tells us? Okay. So you have certain characteristics that you possess, but they don't always show up. Something in your environment or something in the situation brings them out or brings them to the surface. So you possess the trait, but you don't always have it. You may be aggressive when needed, but not be an aggressive person. You may be patient when needed, but only be patient in those specific contexts, not necessarily all the time. Okay? 5-factor. Can you name me the 5 personality dimensions? Conscientiousness, openness to new experience, extroversion, agreeableness, very good. Emotional stability. We use the N and ocean because it's just easy. We're not really looking for neurotic, we're looking for emotional stability. Okay? We're all comfortable with what each of the 5 means and what distinguishes one from another? A resounding, very good, thank you. Locus of control, what do we mean? What is locus of control? Define it in English. Okay, what controls your behavior?
The location of where the control stems from.
The location from where the control stems from. So where do you believe control of your environment stems from? Is it internal? If I'm an internal locus of control, what does that mean? You believe that you have the skills, the abilities to manage or to handle or control a particular situation. Make sense? If you're an external, that means the situation is controlled by outside factors. Outside factors external to you, such as weather, luck, being in the right place at the right time. Okay? So internals and externals. Self-monitoring in English. Okay? So you learn learning to control your own behavior. You look at a situation and you decide, do I not, based on your surroundings, right? So you self-monitor. You're not being monitored, you are keeping an eye on your own behavior, and you're adjusting your behavior accordingly. Okay? Self-esteem is, in definition terms, simple definition of self-esteem. Positive self-evaluation. That's right. Self-esteem, okay, self-esteem is having a positive self-evaluation. We see ourselves in a positive light. Learning. What do people learn in organizations? We said interpersonal skills, practical skills, and what is an intrapersonal skill? What does that mean? What is an intrapersonal skill? So what is a skill that is within you? Problem solving? Analytical skills, becoming more analytical. Risk taking, critical judgment, right? These are all skills we can learn, but then will reside within us. Okay? So in organizations, we're interested in the three. We need the skills, the practical skills that help you to do a task. We need the interpersonal skills that help us to work with other people. Interpersonal, between people. Communication, cooperation, collaboration. These are all skills that are very important in any organizational context. Having good interpersonal skills allows you to maintain positive relations with coworkers, clients, suppliers, and so on.
What about
Cultural
cultural awareness?
awareness. What about cultural awareness?
Social norms and organization.
Okay, where does cultural awareness fit? Intra? Okay, intrapersonal, right? So intrapersonal within you, learning to develop cultural awareness as well. Okay, it would fit into that category. Okay? Good so far? Any questions about this? No? Operant learning. What is operant learning? Learning by doing. Exactly. Give somebody a chance to practice so that they may learn to do. Positive reinforcement. In OB terms, please. What is positive reinforcement? Give me the words.
Adding a stimulus to encourage the behavior.
Adding a positive stimulus in order to encourage or maintain a desired behavior. Okay? Sorry about the buzzwords, but I need the words, right? So to encourage, allow to have happen, or encourage the repeat or the maintenance of positive or desired behaviors. Negative reinforcement? The removal of a negative stimulus in order to
improve the rest of the group's condition, I guess. To improve the rest of the group, I would say.
okay. In OB terms, we'll say the removal of a negative stimulus in order to encourage, to develop, or increase, or maintain a positive behavior, okay, or a desired behavior. An example of that. Remember we talked about removing you from a noisy part of the warehouse, giving you better, the removal of something that gets in your way. Sometimes people work in very confined spaces. Removing some of those confinements gives you the freedom to do your job better. It is considered a positive. It's considered negative because there is a removal, but it's considered a reward type behavior. Okay, it's increased. It's reinforcement focused, not punishment focused. Okay. Extinction. What is extinction? What do you do when you try to get a behavior to become extinct?
It's you ignore a behavior, so like it's gonna be removed by itself.
You ignore behavior, meaning you don't encourage it. By ignoring it, you don't give it the attention it seeks. Therefore, it gradually dissipates and goes away. Okay? We all know punishment, right? Application of a negative stimulus in order to decrease an undesired behavior. Okay, good. Good, we're all clear with those, understand those, important. Social cognitive theory, remember that? Social cognitive theory, what is it about? In broad terms, what is it about? Learn by observation, so there's observational learning. By self-regulation, correct? So regulating the dosing of what to do and how to do it. Okay, and third part? Believing that you can do it. Self-efficacy beliefs. Okay, observational learning, self-regulation, efficacy beliefs. Self-efficacy means having a belief in one's ability to perform a task. That's it. Don't overcomplicate it more than that. Good? Observational learning. You've been behind me the whole time. I only had one person ask me to answer. This morning, sir.
It's okay.
You're good?
Yeah.
Okay. No questions? That's the end of chapter 2. We're good? Good. What's perception? What do you need for perception to happen? 3 things. Target, a perceiver, and a situation. Okay? Good. What are the factors that influence perception? What will influence how we perceive? Experience, biases, such as stereotyping, emotional state, mood and emotions. Alex? Right, that's perception. So what influences us? What happens? So what are the factors that influence perception? The situation will influence our mood, our emotions, our biases, okay? Far so good? Bruner's model of the perceptual process. What did Bruner say? What did Bruner tell us about perception? When I look at something for the first time, when something is vague or ambiguous or unknown to me, what am I going to be? Am I more or less open to cues? Very open, exactly. More open to cues. Okay, I'm looking for all kinds of cues. Once I have labeled or characterized my target, what do? I categorize it and then I become more or less selective. If I wait long enough, you're going to keep bouncing back and forth between the two. More selective, right? When you're open means you're less selective. You will take everything in. If you don't know what it is, you're looking at every aspect of it. When you know what it is, when I show you this, and I bring this for the first time, if you don't know what it is, you will look at every possible dimension of it. You look at the front, the back. So you're not selective at all if you don't know what it is. Once you've identified that it's an overhead projector, then you are very selective. You will immediately see it, and you will see what you want to see, and you quickly determine, if I show you one in a different color, you don't start the process over again, will you? You'll recognize some of the similar facets, jump right to a conclusion, go back to the initial characterization. Do we like to be wrong? No. We don't, right? So if you qualify me as a good guy, and you like me, the next time you see me and I do something that's not very good guy-ish, right? But in your mind, you characterize me as a good guy, you will look for ways to maintain that characterization. You will not like the idea that, maybe you were wrong. You'll be very selective. You look for those things that will reinforce your initial characterization. All right? Yes? Okay. Biases, sorry, excuse me. Main biases in person perception. Give me a couple of, just give me two. 2 biases in person perception.
Primary effect?
Primacy? Primacy and recency. What's primacy? First impressions. Recency. Last impressions. Another bias. Stereotyping. Which is a generalization. You attribute qualities to an entire group of people or a segment of a population. So it's a broad generalization about people who belong to a particular group or a particular population. All JMSB students are smart. Okay? Because I was a JMSB student, I think all JMSB students are smart. It's a stereotype. Just put it together. Okay? Anybody else? One more? relativity is a component of the Brunner model, but what is a bias? Preconceived notion, but reliance on central traits is a good one, right? We say that tall people must be better at. Okay, so reliance on physical traits are the easiest ones. So reliance on central traits is a bias that we have that is based on specific facets of an individual, whether it be physical or personality dimension. All right? How do people form attributions? What is an attribution, first of all? What is an attribution?
Feelings towards?
No, attribution.
Oh, no, okay.
Assigning causes. Attribution is assigning a cause. So I attribute an individual's behavior to dispositional, situational factors, a bit of both. Okay, so now I'm saying, how do I form an attribution? What is it that I do that helps me to develop an explanation for behaviors? Okay, so the cause of behavior. How do we do it? How do we form attributions?
Questions about the consensus, the consistency, and
Look at your notes, it's okay. Look at your notes. Okay, we look for cues. If the person does it all the time, we say that the behavior is the cues we're looking for. If the person does it regardless of where they are, what happens, they're doing it all the time. It is consistent. It's consistent regardless of anything around them. They behave a certain way, therefore you must assume that it's dispositional, right? It's dispositional because we're looking for cues that will indicate that. Regardless of where they are, who they're with, what they're doing, doesn't matter what the context is, they always behave the same way. So they have consistency. What if they behave in a certain manner around some people but not around others? They show high or low consensus. Meaning if they're around certain people, they'll behave one way, around other people, they'll behave another. Therefore, we'll attribute that to situational factors in their environment. And the third type of cue is distinctiveness. What is distinctive?
It's different from a job to another.
Over time,
Okay.
right? Environment. So looking at the environment, the physical, not of people, but the actual space. So in the case of two different jobs, there are two different contexts. So distinctiveness refers to context. Do you behave the same way in one job as you do in a totally different job, as you do with your family? So in a context, it's not about the family, it would be really the context around you, the environment taking away the people. And we refer to distinctiveness. Okay? High distinctive means one behavior appears in one setting, but not in another. Therefore, the attribution would be situational. If you behave in a certain way in one place, but not everywhere, that means it's because of the environment you're in. Okay? More often than not. Bias is an attribution. Give me one. One bias and attribution. Actor-observer effect. What is the actor-observer effect? If I'm the actor and you're the observer, actor base says it's situational, because that's when something goes wrong more often than not. Something goes wrong, we use the actor-observer effect. I'm the actor, I blame my shortcoming on the situation. You as the observer, blame it on me, on the disposition. Okay? The flip side, when things go right, is called self-serving bias. If I do something right as the actor, I think it's dispositional. You think it's very good. Okay? Diversity. Why? Why is diversity good?
For creativity. Because like people share opinions that they learn from them.
Learning from new opinions, creativity. Two heads are better than one. Good for marketing, good for international expansion, especially in this global economy. Okay, all very good. Okay, valuing diversity is not tolerating diversity. How do I value diversity? Putting policies in place, respecting the differences, not just tolerating differences, ensuring that we bring forward that we're doing a lot of things to encourage inclusion not just say, hey, look, we've got 80 different countries represented in our school. Okay? Do we celebrate holidays? Do we take time to understand what that particular diverse component of the organization can bring? And diversity isn't just cultural. It can be different gender, different sexual orientation, various ages. Diversity has very many facets. It's not just cultural. Okay, we're good? Cross-cultural variation in values. Give me 2 dimensions that Hofstede talked about. 2 dimensions.
Power distance.
Power distance is the extent to which
There's people in management that work with employees, open door policies.
power distance is the extent to which a tremendous discrepancy exists in power between subordinates and superiors. So high power distance means there's a tremendous inequity that exists between superiors and subordinates. Okay? Low power distance would be the open door policy, the flat organization, the easy access to higher level employees by lower level employees. Another dimension, we have power distance. Collective versus individualism. North America is predominantly individualistic. That's right. Me, myself, and I. Collective,
Masculinity.
masculinity, femininity. What is the difference between a masculine culture or feminine culture?
Well, men are more in power.
Men, it's a more patriarchal model. Men tend to have more power within those structures.
And feministic is more like equality, values more equality.
Yes. Equality, egalitarian models, exactly. They value equality, they value justice, and they value harmony and collaboration rather than competition and winning over losing. Okay? Good. How do people develop and change attitudes? What is an attitude? Give me a mathematical equation for attitude. Values plus your beliefs will lead to how you feel towards something, which is the attitude. How do people change? Do they change their values, you think?
No.
Unlikely. So what has to change? Beliefs. Why do people change beliefs? Why would anybody change a belief? New knowledge or new information that you weren't aware of before.
Also, like, we can change, like, our opinion about that person, because maybe the person changed.
Right, so you observe it. So there's fact, there's proof. So you get proof that there is a change, therefore your belief about that individual changes, which leads to an attitude shift towards that particular individual or that particular activity. Okay? So that's how we change our attitude. Very good. Job satisfaction is defined as attitude towards a job. That's it. So your attitude towards a job. High job satisfaction would be positive attitude. Why? Why would somebody have high job satisfaction?
If they're happy.
They enjoy what they're doing, leads to intrinsic motivation in a perfect situation. The question about performance is going to come. So performance will come in just a second. Does higher performance lead to higher job satisfaction? Not necessarily.
High performance lead to high job satisfaction, not the other way around.
Both are not necessary.
Both are not necessary.
Not necessarily. It's an imperfect relationship. Yes, in a perfect situation, the higher the performance, the more satisfied you are. And the more satisfied you are, the better you'll perform. However, that's not how it works. Performance is affected by so many other factors, such as competency, skills, knowledge, education. Someone said luck. Luck, external factors that are outside of your control. So performance may or may not be present whether you are satisfied or not. Okay? Discrepancy? Discrepancy?
Setting goals.
Okay, you're jumping further down, but that's right, it's setting a goal. So let's say discrepancy is?
Isn't it what you the outcomes you perceive from your job versus what you actually receive?
Right. What I expect from my job compared to what I get from my job or a situation. In this case, in an organizational setting, we talk about what I expect versus what I get. The gap between the two is the discrepancy. If I expect my job to be flexible to pay a certain salary and to allow me to learn new skills, and I get all three, then there's no discrepancy. Discrepancy is zero. It's what I expect from my job compared to what I get out of my job.
Would it be like contrary, like you thought you were gonna get less and get more? Is that?
That's right, you can have positive, right? You can have a positive discrepancy. You can think you're supposed to make 50,000 and you're getting 70,000. It's a very positive discrepancy, right? So you're 20,000 ahead of what you thought you'd be at. So the discrepancy can exist the other way as well. Fairness. What kind of fairness? Three kinds of fairness. Procedural fairness is about, what are the three? Let's start from the beginning. Procedural, distributive, interactional. Right? We talk about fairness or justice. So distributive. Yes, the resources. How the resources are distributed. How they're assigned. Procedural. The what? Distributive is what resources are distributed. Okay? Procedural is how they're distributed. On what basis? Based on what criteria and what rules? Is it consistent? Is it fair? Are we getting rid of people in a certain department based on particular criteria that is consistent over time? Or does it change depending on who the person is who might be laid off? Okay? So procedural fairness is very important to make people feel that the system is transparent. Third one is interactional fairness, which is the way these outcomes or the way decisions are communicated. Exactly. A very fair decision can sound very unfair if it's presented in a very impersonal manner. Okay? Disposition we talked about. Mood and emotion. Mood defined as longer term, less intense, or diffused feeling. It's a feeling. That's all it is. Okay? So more diffuse, longer lasting, less intense feeling. Emotion? Intense. Short-lived. Feeling. Very, very pronounced. It's a spike. You'll see it as a spike. So, we talked about it, right? Higher job satisfaction doesn't always lead to higher performance and vice versa. What about high job satisfaction, absenteeism? High job satisfaction, high or low absenteeism? Lower absenteeism, right? It would lead to lower. Turnover, high or low? Low. Performance? High, but it depends, right? Yes, it should be high, but it depends on other factors as well. Performance is based on many other factors other than simply job satisfaction. OCB, higher. The more satisfied you are, the more likely you are to engage in organizational citizenship behavior, which is defined as voluntary, spontaneous behavior that is not rewarded or recognized by the organization that contributes to organizational goals or effectiveness. Okay, it has to contribute to the organization's success. It can't just be nice. Okay, someone being nice is someone being nice. It's not OCB until it contributes to organizational effectiveness. We're good? Doing okay so far? Yeah, okay. Customer satisfaction. Higher job satisfaction will lead to higher customer satisfaction. Right? You're happy in your job, your customers feel that you're happy in your job. Okay? That's positive and it's good for business. Continue. Commitment. Affective commitment. You stay in a job because you want to. Is it good? The best. Right? The best reason to stay in a job is because you love your job and you want to stay in your job. Affective. Continuance. Staying in a job because you have to. Right? You don't have the means to leave either because no other choice or financial commitments from your lifestyle force you into multiple, expenditures that you cannot afford to forego. Weak job market, no opportunity out the outside that would be better than what you currently have. And finally, normative commitment, staying in a job because you feel you should. Certain moral obligation to stay on. A lot of not-for-profits, a lot of NGOs do very well because people are there because they feel committed to the organization and what the organization stands for. They feel they need to stay with that organization because of what it stands for. We're good? Yes? The cultural dimensions? We talked about a few. Just know a few. You should review Hofstede to understand what some of the dimensions are. We talked about 2 of them, actually 3 of them. We talked about masculinity, femininity, power distance. We talked about collectivism, individualism. Okay? So just look at Hofstede, understand what they are. If you have any questions, please email me between now and Friday if it's unclear. Motivation. What is motivation? Right, so the 4 parts of motivation, when we define it, we talk about effort, direction, goal, and persistence, exactly. So one must persevere. When the going gets tough, you don't quit. Motivation, having the motivation means pushing through the hard stuff, pushing through the difficult times. So persistence is very important. So the basic properties, you've got the 4, so comfortable, you need the goal, you need to know where you're headed, you have to be working towards that goal. You can be motivated to do things that are not in line with an organization's goals. That's great, but that motivation doesn't particularly help your organization. Intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic, coming from within. You find it from yourself. It's called something else as well. Autonomous. Autonomous. It's up there, okay? Autonomous motivation, stemming from within you. Okay, that's important. Having that autonomous motivation is great. You don't need someone to dangle a carrot in front of you or to constantly oversee your work to help you get excited about working and persevering, applying effort towards the goal. Extrinsic motivation, while it's necessary, okay, we try to have more intrinsic. What is extrinsic motivation? Control from outside of you, by your environment. An example of extrinsic motivation. Money, pay raise, bonus, promotion, benefits. Okay? Porsche. Porsche is a good one, actually, yeah. We talked about self-determination theory. Self-determination theory in very simple terms. It's autonomous. Whether it's autonomous or controlled, and you choosing to pick the motivation that works for you, finding the motivation from within you to get a particular task achieved. Factors that predict performance. What predicts performance? The personality dimension of conscientiousness is linked with performance, yes. Emotional intelligence is a tremendous predictor of performance, and general cognitive ability. Okay? General cognitive ability is your data processing capacity, your ability to do mental calculation, tactile skills, basically your ability to manage mental data. Okay? So, intelligence, emotional intelligence, conscientiousness as a character trait, all right? All good predictors of performance. McClellan's needs theories. What did McClellan talk about? You should know this.
3 needs.
Yeah, the need for power, the need for...
Slow down. Before that, it was on the exam, on the midterm. It is a needs theory of motivation. A non-hierarchical needs theory, right? You don't need to progress from one to the other. It is independent, so it's a non-hierarchical needs theory of motivation that outlines the conditions under which 1 or more of 3 needs are met. Those 3 needs are
need for power, need for achievement, and need for affiliation.
And affiliation. Power, achievement, affiliation. So we have certain conditions that will allow us to have our needs fulfilled. And it claims or purports that if we work in an environment that helps us fulfill those needs, we will be motivated. Okay? We're good with that?
Can you say that again?
All that?
Oh, the
What do I say again?
definition. The definition.
It's a non-hierarchical needs theory of motivation that outlines the conditions under which the fulfillment or the satisfaction of one or more of three needs leads to motivation. And those three needs, you already said, are power, achievement, and affiliation. We're good? Expectancy theory. Expectancy theory. Definition. Right? Understanding an expected outcome. So, we have how many kinds of outcomes? At least two. We have a first level, which is something that benefits the organization. An organizational outcome will lead to a second level outcome, which is a benefit to the individual. Exactly. Okay? So, what does expectancy theory say? If the value of the second level outcome is high enough, the valence of the second level outcome is high enough, it will act as a motivator for you to achieve the first level outcome, which is benefiting the organization. Okay? Certain conditions have to apply though, because if that second level outcome is not guaranteed, the instrumentality is not high, meaning you won't necessarily get what you want to get at the other end, its motivating potential to get the first level outcome is diminished. If I tell you, you achieve your sales figures this quarter, you might win a trip to Cuba, versus you meet your sales figures this quarter, you will get a trip to Cuba. If I say you will, I will expect higher motivation than if I say you might. Okay? So the value of Cuba is always going to be there. The instrumentality, how achieving one outcome will lead to the achievement of the second outcome, has to also be there, has to be linked. You have to have high instrumentality for it to lead to greater motivation. We're good? Balance is value. How much do you value the trip to Cuba? So that's what we're talking about. Balance. Balance refers to the value you place on the second level outcome. Okay? Good? Very good. Cross-cultural limitations, remember? We talked about, I didn't talk about equity theory. Equity theory. So, your inputs to your outcomes compared to somebody in a similar position's input to outcome ratio. So you can have two people who are motivated because one works twice as many hours as the other and receives twice as much salary. There is no inequity. They're working twice as hard, they're getting twice as much. It is fair. In an individualistic society like North America, equity works well. We believe in fairness because we're really concerned with ourselves. We're not a collective culture. We don't look for equality. We look for equity. Okay? So that's equity theory. If we take that into another culture, will it work just as well? No. Not necessarily. Okay? Which theory of motivation works particularly well? Goal setting works. And expectancy is perfect because the pieces or the components change. The valence changes, the instrumentality might change. However, we're all motivated by the second level outcome, whatever that might be in each particular culture. Okay? Good? Any other questions here? No, we're good? We're zipping through the first half of the semester, excuse me. Motivation and practice. Money as a motivator is good, yes?
Yes.
Yes, it's a good extrinsic motivator. It will be there, it will always be there. Don't focus too much on it, I think it's quite obvious, but you need to know that. Job design. Job design is a motivator. What does that mean?
That you change the job to
Sometimes
make it more interesting?
Sometimes changing the job a little bit can make it more interesting. Sometimes the job itself is all you need. Sometimes making the job more interesting is enough to get people to work harder towards organizational goals. So sometimes organizations will spend less time worrying about bonus structures and more time thinking about how the work is done. Right? How the work they expect their employees to do is structured. Am I giving my employees boring work to do? If so, how can I change it in such a way to make it less boring, more intrinsically motivating? So, we refer to this handy little tool called the job characteristics model. What is skill variety? What is skill variety?
The different tasks that you have to do.
Different tasks that you have to perform in your job. The more tasks you have, one would consider, again, not being exaggerated, one would consider that to be more motivating, more challenging. Task identity is defined as
How you can relate to it.
being able to identify what it is that you're working on. If you're just putting little pieces into a board and don't get to see the finished product, there is low task identity. You do not see it from putting the component in the board to being able to use it as a remote control device. So seeing it from one end to the other, seeing a complete cycle of work, refers to task identity. Task significance is defined as the impact that you have, the importance
On the organization or
on other people.
on the users.
Okay? Significance is on other people. What you do in the organization, does it have an impact on other people? Now, other people could be other people in your company, it could be suppliers, clients, but the impact your task has on others refers to task significance. Do I do a job that matters? Do I do a job that matters? That's the question. Autonomy refers to the ability
You can just schedule your own work
to
activities.
manage your work, such as
Your time schedule,
your time,
the way you do the
the
work.
way you do the work, okay? So it gives you that you have the latitude and the freedom to do the work in a manner that suits you. It means high autonomy. And feedback is
Feedback on the performance.
information you get back about the quality of your performance. Okay, so that comes from either built into the job or from superiors or co-workers. So, it was mentioned earlier, job design. If a job is in, we go through what's called job enrichment. What does job enrichment strive to do? Increase the scope, which increases the intrinsic motivating potential of a job. Just because you make it more intrinsically motivating doesn't mean that everyone will be motivated. You're trying to increase the potential for the job to be more intrinsically motivated, making it enjoyable for the individual doing it and making the job the motivator. The job itself becomes the motivator. Okay? Many job enrichment strategies, such as, what's a job enrichment strategy?
Job rotation.
Job rotation, very good. Besides job rotation,
And hours,
combining tasks.
Flex time.
Flex time, could be, yes. Forming work teams,
meeting the public,
internal or external, contact with clients, right? Working with internal or external clients, if you have that in your personality to do so. Okay? Many different ways to make a job more interesting by adding certain dimensions to it. Goal setting. Management by objectives is a good example. How do you manage by objectives? Give me the cycle.
Oh, I don't know the cycle, you like setting goals, setting.
So who sets the goals?
Well, you set the goals for the whole organization, then you set them for the individuals, and then you communicate them to.
Okay, so you set the larger organizational goals, then managers meet with actual individuals to give them their goals and discuss their goals.
To agree.
Then there's
and develop.
Periodic
Meeting.
meetings to see how the progress is coming.
And how they actually did.
Then there's an actual appraisal process, there's an actual line where we say, how did you do? Did you achieve the goals?
Then you do it again.
And then you repeat. Okay? It involves a lot of paperwork, involves a lot of time, but it's very motivating because you're getting people involved in their own performance process. Okay? So goal setting is seen to work in many different cultural contexts and can enhance the feeling of intrinsic motivation towards a job. Alternative work schedules. Give me an example of one.
Flex time,
Flex time,
compressed work,
compressed work week,
job.
job sharing,
Tele.
telecommuting. Good. So working from anywhere, typically from home. Okay, good. Employee diversity. Different people have different needs. If you're a recent parent, having more flex time to be able to be with your young child is a good thing. So diversity takes on different dimensions. Again, don't look at diversity in a stereotypical cultural sense. Not just different races. Okay, we can look at diversity in many different ways. Okay? We're good? Okay, we're in the second half of the semester. Very good, actually, you're doing well. Groups. What's a formal group? Set by the organization. It is assigned. People are assigned to that group
The organization.
to achieve an organizational goal. Exactly. Okay? A formal group is a group of people whose members are assigned to it with specific tasks that are linked directly to the organization. Easily put. What's an informal group? Yes, it emerges naturally as a result of common interests. Smokers, water cooler people, lunchtime gang, okay? Do these people's goals align with the organization's goal? No, it depends. Not necessarily, exactly. They could. They can certainly be right in line, which would be wonderful. But there's nothing that obliges them to. They emerge over common interests, and the interest may be something outside of work. Good. The stages of group development. First stage. Forming. Storming. Norming. Performing. Adjourning. Very good. Okay? Do you have to go through all the stages?
No.
Not necessarily. You may skip 1, 2, or 3, depending. Some organizations have systems in place where you don't have to worry about that because you're given exactly what the norms are going to be, what the deadlines are, and what your performance expectations are expected to be. Excuse me. Punctuated equilibrium model begins with a first meeting,
Phase 1.
right? Group is made, stage 1. What happens during stage 1?
Not much.
Very little.
A lot of work, very little progress. A lot of people doing a lot of stuff. Everyone's busy, but no one is necessarily working in the same direction. It's good. What happens at the midpoint? They realize, okay, we've got to start picking one of these directions, and so there has to be some kind of a shift at the midpoint. The midpoint shift is important. Why?
To determine the performance.
It determines what stage 2 is going to be. And stage 2 has to be a marked increase in performance because there is less experimentation. There's less individual work with no collaboration. It's focus work on a singular project. So all the effort, instead of having 5 people work on 5 tasks, you have 5 people working on 1 task. That's where you get that shift at the midpoint. And the second phase is punctuated by deadline and frantic work, accelerated work to achieve the goal by the deadline. Okay? Those are the 2 models. We're good? Any questions? Good. Group structure and its consequences. Right? Group structure, we talked about size. So let's just talk for a second. Group size and member diversity. Typically, the larger the group and the more diverse. More or less cohesive? Less cohesive. Why would a large group be less cohesive?
Too many conflicting ideas, maybe?
Too many conflicting ideas. Not everyone is heard.
Less communication.
Less communication. Good. Okay? So, larger groups, same idea. Very diverse groups at the beginning.
Yeah.
Resistance, not necessarily good cohesive structures, but over time, surface diversity, things like ageism and cultural background, dissipate. Once you get over that hump, it's fine. When you have deep-rooted diversity, that really stemming from values and things that we hold very dear and very personal, and we do not want to see it from another person's perspective, that can be very divisive, and that can prevent group cohesiveness. Okay? So now, we talk about what's an additive task. What is an additive task?
Everyone does one task and the sum of them is basically the final task.
So the task is a function of the sum of many subtasks. That's additive. So you add up the contribution of each individual. Therefore, in that situation, larger group is better or smaller group is better? Larger the group, better the performance, right? If you have to clean the neighborhood, having 10 people is good, having 1,000 people is better. Because you add up the sums of each person's contribution and you get 1,000 people cleaning the neighborhood, right? What's a disjunctive task?
Performance dependent on the performance of a certain individual, like the best worker.
The single best individual of the group will determine the group's success. For example, scientific research is an easy one. A lab with a top-notch researcher can guide the rest of the research team towards success. In that case, larger is better or smaller is better? Why larger? More chance of getting a star performer. Excellent. What's a conjunctive task?
The performance depends on
The performance of a group is limited by the performance of the single weakest individual. Okay? An assembly line is a perfect example. So the weakest person will dictate the entire output rate. Larger group or smaller group is better? Smaller. For the same reason. Larger number, more chance of getting a weak member. Very good. Norms and roles in social interaction. I think we're comfortable with that. Norms. In society we have certain things that we expect people to do. In North America, people raise their hand to ask a question in class. Okay? Comfortable with that? Norms are easy. Roles in social interaction, we've talked about in class. Again, nothing, anybody have questions about it? No? Straightforward. Okay? It's all about group, we talk about group cohesiveness. Once we have the norms set up for a group, then as long as we adhere to the norms, there's going to be social harmony. Okay?
So do you have to know the conflicting rules?
No.
Okay.
Group cohesiveness and its consequences. Cohesive groups are good, yes?
Yes.
Depends. Not always. When is a cohesive group not a good thing?
When they agree with the organization.
One more time.
When does not serve the
When they agree with the organizational goals.
When they don't, when they're not in line with the organization's goals. If they're cohesive around elements that do not contribute to the attainment of organizational objectives. Right. Okay? You can be cohesive on social matters. That doesn't in any way help an organization. They can be so cohesive, in fact, that trying to bring in new members is virtually impossible. Okay? Cohesive and insular are very different. You can be cohesive, but inclusive. Some groups become so cohesive that anybody who's not part of the group is never welcome, which can be a problem. All right, social loafing. Two kinds of social loafing. Free rider effect, which is
You get a free ride, but you're nothing. You get
the law of
where you withhold physical or intellectual contribution to work because someone else or the group carries you. Okay, the group carries you to do the work. So you withhold that effort. What kind of a problem is it? What kind of a problem? What is it a problem of? It's a motivation problem. It's a problem in withholding effort, okay, toward the attainment of a goal. So someone is withholding effort because they're not motivated to do so, yet the group they are with allows them to continue to move forward and achieve the organization's goals. The other ones, we have free rider, social loafing, also is known to be sucker effect. Okay, what's a sucker effect?
when you withhold your contribution because you feel like other people are getting a free ride.
Bingo. Withholding effort, whether intellectual or physical, because you feel that people around you are getting a free ride. So you do not want to be taken for a sucker, so you
Is it a consequence of free ride or is it in anticipation of free ride?
typically in reaction to free ride. Okay? Not saying, man, I expect that guy to be a slacker, so I'm just going to stop working right now. No, usually, no, it's not a preemptive strike. No, it's not. Yeah, I worked with him before, he's lazy, so I'm not going to work. No, it's going to be more, they're slacking off, you know what? If you're going to slack off, I'll slack off too bad. Okay? Good? Are we clear? Easy enough? We're all comfortable? The ideas of structure, cohesiveness, social well-being, we're good? Okay. Now, organizational culture. Beliefs, values, and assumptions, right? That define an organizational, what a culture stands for within an organization. What's an example of a shared belief? Shared belief? Common goal? Shared belief. An organization that believes that we stand for the customer is always right. Okay? So it could be a policy statement. It could be a value statement. It could be a performance statement. Okay? Some kind of an affirmation an affirmation that is shared by all people. So it's a belief that we all live by. We all agree on this particular belief. We all agree to this particular mantra, this particular philosophy. Okay? Values are those philosophies, those particular aspects. What the organization stands for. Not what everyone believes, but why does the organization exist? Values. Okay? It exists to find a cure for cancer. It exists to make communication transparent across the entire globe. It exists to give people access to shoes at a good price. It exists, whatever. The reason it exists. Okay? And assumptions. What are assumptions? What are the assumptions in an organization? Assuming you're right. What else?
Assuming the role of leaders in each way.
Okay. Okay. Assumptions are things we take for granted. Things we take for granted. Things operate in a certain manner. The organization stands for certain things, and it behaves in a certain manner, and we expect it to behave, the organization to behave in that manner all the time. So we assume the continuity of what it is that we do and what we stand for. Okay? We just take them for granted, and we see them ongoing beyond us, beyond this manager, beyond the next manager.
Let's say like for Disney, what would we believe in
So for Disney, what is the shared belief for Disney?
Happiness, joy, and
Happiness, joy.
kingdom of kids
For kids from 8 to
75.
98, right? Okay, for all kids, a place for all kids. It's a wonderland. It's a magical place on earth, right? We all believe the same thing. We all believe the client deserves our full attention and our full project, right? The client deserves the full performance that we can provide. Values, right? They believe in magic. They believe in bringing joy to the environment that they have. They believe in making this happiest place on earth come to life every day. Okay? They believe that their values are all about creating a magical space. It's all about creating this other reality. Okay? They value teamwork. They value cooperation, collaboration. They value customer service beyond customer service. Okay? It's a performance art that they do. They're always performing. Everybody's on stage. Okay, so they value the quality of the performance. Now the assumptions. What kind of assumptions do you think Disney would have? What do people at Disney assume?
That everybody's all giggling and happy and ready to go.
Yeah, it's not just them, right? It's not just me working to make people happy. Everybody is. From the gate person, to the person cleaning, to the ferry in the parade. What else would they assume? Everybody wants to be at Disney, right? The assumption is everybody wants to be here. Everybody wants to work as hard as me. Okay? These shared assumptions are a very important part of creating a culture which builds cohesion within the organization. Strong cultures, assets, coordination, right? What's a strong culture? Your words, strong culture.
Where there's a lot of structure.
Where the organization has a lot of structure, where rules are defined.
Intents, values, beliefs, and assumptions. They're intents, the values, assumptions, and beliefs.
They're very clear. They're outlined and they're articulated in the organization. There's no room for ambiguity. Everything is very precise and very structured. Okay, it's very clear what everybody's roles are, and it's very clear what the organization stands for. Okay, it's very easy to identify that an organization that believes in customer service will always deliver excellent customer service in any circumstance. All right, so it helps you coordinate efforts. It helps you resolve conflicts because oftentimes we're on the same page trying to get to the same objective. Therefore, we'll find a way to resolve it for the benefit or the good of the organization or the client or whoever that you're servicing. Financial success, less waste, less doubling of efforts, personal responsibility for how I do my work, which contributes positively to our organization's success. Okay, you get a lot of people buying in to the idea that achieving the organization's goals is a good thing. Okay? Liabilities, resistance to change, how? Yeah, we've always done it this way. We've always done it and it's led to our success. Why would we change it? Right? You become very afraid of changing the recipe that made you what you are. Culture clash happens when two organizations, two companies merge together, right? It becomes an us versus them. If you thought forever that you were the right, in the right, you were the good ones, you were the ones doing all the right things, then you join forces with your rival, your former rival. How can you all of a sudden forget the past? How do you simply say, oh yeah, we'll just take on some of their values? No, you hold on to yours very strong, and then these two cultures start to collide with one another. And pathology. Sometimes some cultures are rooted in secrecy, in such competition that people are actually backstabbing each other. There's paranoia, all right? And sometimes there's cheating as a way of life. If you don't cheat or cut corners, then you're not going to make money in a particular industry. And some industries are a little bit more renowned for bad behavior, okay? And that leads to pathology. People end up going against their own personal values in order to stay with the organization. Okay? So, we look to identify an organizational culture by looking at symbols. Give me an example of a symbol. An actual example. The logo of JMSB. The apple symbol.
A mascot.
A mascot. And usually there's meaning to it. Right? What is the meaning of the bite in the apple? Is it what do you know? What's the two different stories?
I know one that apparently was just when you were printing it out, there was a part that was missing, so just like that.
Okay. Okay. I've heard different versions as well. I'm not even sure which is true. I heard taking a bite out of the fruit of knowledge. Right? There's a famous fruit of knowledge. So you take a bite out of the fruit. There's all kinds of stories circulating around, but it's these stories, right, that help people to develop these thoughts about what an organization stands for. A Nike swoosh, which is an accelerator, acceleration, movement. Okay, what does it symbolize? It symbolizes fluidity and so on. Okay, so each of these logos, the Concordia logo is an open book, right? The idea of academia, of knowledge, of thirst for learning. So all these symbols are rooted in many different facets. If you look at the logo of the flag of Montreal, Montreal flag has 4 different quadrants. Do you know what's in each quadrant? What kind of flowers? Fleurs French background. There's a clover. Clover for the Irish population that developed Montreal. What other flowers are there? There's a rose for the British colonies that form Montreal. There's a 4th flower. Look it up before the exam just for fun. Okay? How to diagnose a culture? Symbols, rituals, things organizational members do repeatedly. What they do repeatedly. Okay? They do it and it's consistent and it's almost predictable. And stories. I give you the story about future electronics. These stories are passed down and convey certain messages about what the culture stands for. At Future Electronics, they stood for excellence. They stood for achievement. Right? And the stories reflect that message they're trying to convey to all their members. And sometimes to the outside world as well. We're good? Okay, leadership. Formal leadership is leadership that is assigned. People are hired into a specific role. They are hired to manage other people, manage processes. Okay? Trait theory of leadership, is it right? First of all, does the trait theory of leadership make sense? What is the trait theory of leadership?
Some traits lead to better leaders.
So basically it says that leaders are born. You have certain traits to be a leader or you don't have traits to be a leader. That's what it says. So that means if you don't have those traits, tough luck, you can't be a leader. Now we know to a great extent that that's not very accurate. You can't put one person who has leadership traits in any leadership situation and have that person be successful. It's not a guarantee. Okay? So just because you have certain traits of intellectual capability, reasoning, good communication skills, while they all contribute, they're not a predictor or guarantor of success. Leadership behaviors We talked about consideration and initiating structure. Now, House added to that, right? So he had 4 different behaviors. What is directive behavior? What is directive behavior, according to House?
Like the structure,
It's like initiating structure, exactly, which is defined as
giving tasks and
assigning tasks, creating schedules, very, very mechanical management, mechanical leadership. Assigning work, ensuring people know what to do and how to do it and when to do it. Okay? It's the drill sergeant approach to managing people. Okay? Which is good. If you don't know what the task is, or you've never done it before, you'd really appreciate someone telling you how to do it. It would be really bad if you show up and you don't know what to do, and someone says, good luck on the job. And it's not a really good way to get your job started. You want someone to guide you. Directive behavior is good in that instance. None of these is inherently great, none is inherently bad. They're all good in the right circumstance. Supportive behavior. What is supportive behavior?
like
Same as
consideration,
consideration, which is defined as
caring more about the people than the task.
approachable, there for the employees, interested in person a little bit more than task, and employee well-being, relationships, exactly. More interested with how your employees feel and providing them with a safe psychological environment in which to do their work. Okay? If you know your job and your job is frustrating but you know how to do it, you're very skilled at it, you don't need to be told how to do your job, you just need someone to listen to you, to ensure that you've got all that you need. Okay? You have to be more considerate, or in this case, supportive. Okay? Good? Participative behavior, which is
For the trenches, like, express their opinions.
one who seeks, a leader who seeks the input of his or her team. Okay, so participative involves the employees in the day-to-day work, in the decision-making, and in the overall operations. So someone who seeks the input from their employees. Participative leaders. Good? And finally, achievement-oriented behavior. A leader that shows achievement-oriented behavior does what? Sets high goals and pushes their employees to achieve them, right? Coaching model, coaching type approach to getting people to go beyond what they think they can achieve or think they can perform. Okay, so achievement oriented is all about believing in your employees, about building them up, encouraging them, motivating them, stimulating them to go beyond their own beliefs and their own expectations. Okay? Participative leadership, again, one of House's behaviors. Participative leadership, do you remember a little bit about it? What's the spectrum, from what end to what end?
Employees.
From what end to what end?
Well, employee and boss and.
Exactly, go completely employee-centric, all the way to boss-centric. So, Baum and Schmidt, very good, right? If you look at the continuum, there are many different stages. What is the extreme employee-centric? What do you do? What would a manager do?
You let them decide.
Yes.
They decide the decisions related to the work.
They make all the decision within a pre-existing framework or parameters. So they have a particular structure, particular objectives, a budget, a timeline, for example, and everything they do within that context is their decision. To the other extreme, where it's completely boss-centric, what happens at that point?
Makes all
Boss
the
is not allowed
decisions.
any input and he just makes the decisions.
Yeah, the boss, he or she, makes all the decisions on everything, will seek minimal input, but makes all the decisions, assigns all the work, and ensures that all things progress according to a prescribed approach. Okay? Transactional leadership. Ooh, yes.
I understand that it's the employee that decides what
Yeah, employee-centric is where the manager gives the employees or the team the authority to make all the decisions within a pre-approved or pre-existing set of parameters. It's not carte blanche, it's not spend all the money you want, take all the time you want. It's usually structured, there's an objective, there's a timeline, there's a budget, there are specific decisions that are left to the team, and they have full control of how they solve whatever the problem is. Okay?
Should we know their like potential advantages and problems as well, like to participate?
Give Give an example. Just give it, what would be an example of an advantage? What would be an advantage? What would be an advantage?
Will they feel more involved?
Motivation.
Motivation, right? When you lead back to the job characteristics model, one of the components is
Task.
the last one, second to last one.
Task identity.
Yes.
Significance.
Autonomy. Task identity could be part and autonomy. So you're enriching the scope of the job, you're improving job scope by giving people more say in what they do. So it has the potential for increasing motivation. So you can link that back, yes. Okay? Transactional leadership. What does a transactional leader do?
Hires employees.
Hires.
Sets people for the right job.
Puts people in their jobs, transacts, pays for programs, ensures budgets are controlled, does the day-to-day operational management, ensures that if the company produces these things, that these things are produced, ensures that the right people are in the right jobs, the right number of resources are available to achieve the organizational objectives. Very important. You have to have those leaders. Now, what's a transformational leader?
Like a motivator.
Good influence.
One who is charismatic, one of the characteristics is charisma, but what is a transformational leader?
And influences change for the future of the organization.
Okay, so envisions the change, okay, creates a vision for the organization, creates long-term objectives for the organization, gives you something to aspire to, makes you feel like what you're doing is the most important thing in the world, okay? Doesn't worry about the here and now only, but thinks certainly about the long term. So it inspires, motivates. One of the characteristics is a leader or an individual with charisma who draws people in to his or her vision. What else? What is another characteristics of a transformational leader? Some of the characteristics, what are they? We said charisma. What's another one?
Development.
Develops employees, okay. Intellectual stimulation, right? So we develop them through intellectual stimulation. We challenges employees so that they develop. What else? Individualized consideration, right? Makes each person feel like they're the most important person in the organization. Has the ability to adapt his or her approach to individual members of his or her team. What's another one? We got 3. One more. Inspirational motivation. So we don't just motivate by rah, 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 by encouraging people to go beyond, but it inspires, gets people to think of the greater objective or the greater good that the organization stands for. Okay? We're good? Comfortable with the difference? Is it better to be one or the other?
Both.
Right. A transformational leader is also transactional. Right? They have to be good at both. They've got to do the day-to-day. You have to produce these things or your company doesn't make any money. And they can't succeed in their industry. So you have to be able to do the transactional as well as transformational in order to be considered a transformational leader. We're good? Good. Decision making, second to last chapter. No, third to last chapter. Decision making. Well-structured problem, ill-structured problem.
Everything is clear and
Well-structured is?
everything is clear.
Everything's clear. Current situation,
With
solution, and how to get there. Right? All clear. Ill-structured problem, the current situation,
It never happened before.
not clear. The path is unclear, and the goal is not necessarily known. Okay? So those are the decisions we have. We only deal in what? Ill-structured problems. Well-structured problems can be
Program.
programmed, automated. We don't need to worry about those. We figure it out. The solution is repeatable. So we can predict. We can say, when this happens, we program the solution, and the machine or the automated system will resolve it. We only deal, well, that's what concerns us, is ill-structured problems. The perfectly rational decision maker is one who values what? Maximization. And the economic person wants economic gain. So it's all about maximizing, not optimizing. We want maximum. We know everything. The perfectly rational person, decision maker, has what? Access to information, right? For free. Immediately. So there's no time committed, no cost committed, and no information left unknown. They have access to everything. Does the perfectly rational decision maker exist?
No.
Very good. All right, so bounded rationality, what does that mean?
It's bounded by time constraints.
Bounded by time constraints,
Information.
financial, political, time, resource, information. We acknowledge that if we wait long enough, we'll get a lot more information. But the reality is sometimes you don't have that much time to collect all the information, so you limit yourself. What are the three aspects of decisions made under bounded rationality? Framing, cognitive biases that impact bounded rationality, and satisficing. Okay? So we frame it, we give it a context, we have biases, we have preconceived notions, and then we set our minimal accepted standard, our satisfactory standard. That's how we make our decision. So we come in with a context, we give ourselves a objective, a series of things to check off our list, and when we find them, we stop looking. We have found our solution. Okay? So, they're right there. Framing, cognitive biases on decision process. The way you frame a problem, the way you set the context will limit. If I tell you to look for the solution somewhere on this screen, that is my frame. You will not look on the board, right? By framing it a certain way will lead to a certain predetermined set of outcomes. So making sure you have the right frame will ensure that you're looking in the right place. Cognitive bias is your preconceived notion. If you believe North American cars are the best when you go car shopping, you will only search North American cars. Okay, so you have a particular bias or a preconceived notion. So what you have as a preconceived notion will limit the scope of your search when you're looking for this information. Okay? In order to make or simplify the decision-making process. Are we clear on those two elements? Yeah. And satisficing is we look for something that meets a minimum level of satisfaction. Once you exceed that, decision making, and you move on. You don't keep searching because you'll be searching forever trying to find something that may not be out there. All right? What is escalation of commitment? Escalation of commitment. One line, tagline, what is it? Committing.
Since you already started, it's bad, but you continue to put resources in it.
Right. Throwing good resources after bad, or continuing to invest in a apparently failing course of action. So you're not working, what you are doing is not generating what you thought it would, and you continue to invest in that same project. So you're throwing good money after bad, throwing good resources after bad. Okay? The problem with escalation of commitment is that decisions are based on what are those previous costs called?
Sunk costs.
Sunk costs, right? Exactly. So you're making decisions based on sunk costs, which will never be recouped, so they should never factor into the decision-making equation. Are we clear?
Yes.
You sure? If you're not, just say none. Okay, I'll repeat it.
Yes.
2 honest people in the class. Good job, guys. Okay. If you make decisions about the future on money that was spent in the past, you are likely, if the money spent in the past did not generate anything, we're going to continue to spend good money, new money, in a course of action that has not generated anything. So if we base it on sunk costs, we are making a mistake in how we allocate those resources. Okay? So if you base it on the past will never be recouped. That money is gone. What we're deciding today is, do we spend $100,000? It's not about making up for the $1 million that was spent. Forget that $1 million, it's gone. Now, what we do have in our hands is $100,000. Do we spend it? Now, if we spend it on the same thing we just spent $1 million on, and this $1 million has given us nothing, is it a wise use of $100,000? Probably not. You've had so many months and so many resources, and yet you've done nothing. But you escalate your commitment because you want to appear responsible. You don't want to appear foolish and wasteful. You don't want someone to say, oh my God, you wasted $1 million. 100,000 more, and all of a sudden the project will materialize. Therefore, I was not wasteful. The $1 million was well invested. Montreal's Olympic Stadium is a perfect example of escalation of commitment, right? $1 billion stadium built in started in 1973, okay? Yes, we have $1 billion stadiums today. We shouldn't have $1 billion stadium built in the 70s. Okay, we continue to put money in, and the building is still lopsided and there's problems and the roof leaks and you want to change the roof again. Okay, that's an escalation of commitment. At some point, sometime in 1980, whatever, there should have been a decision made to say, enough. And they would have probably saved $500 million. Okay? Mood's good, bad? Decision making.
Good.
You're in a good mood. What kind of decisions do you make?
Positive.
Oh, I'm out.
Risky.
What? Risky, a bit riskier. Rash, maybe, in a hurry. What else? Creative, right? So if you're looking for a creative solution, out of the box thinking, having people in a good mood is a good thing. If you're in a bad mood, what kind of decisions do you make?
More conservative.
Very conservative. You're a little bit cynical. You're more careful. You ask more questions. You don't believe the information up front. So you're a bit more conservative in your decision-making process. So sometimes it's good, right? But not always. If you need more creative solutions, then you want someone in a positive mood. Quickly, pros and cons of using groups to make decisions.
Having a major skill.
You disperse or you share responsibility. So there's a dissipation of responsibility. Better quality. Why are decisions better? Two heads are better than one. Good. More creative. Greater commitment. If you come up with a solution and you're the ones to implement, chances are you'll be more committed to the solution or the idea that you came up with. Okay? Good. Cons. What is a con? What is groupthink?
Do we opinions?
Unanimous.
What is groupthink?
We share the blame?
Oh, like
Is it like
some,
a
like people agree just because everyone else is?
Yes. Okay? When people agree, right, a sense of unanimity, a semblance of unanimous decision. People don't want to look like they stand out. They don't want to be the ones to, slow down the whole process. So they agree because certain people within the group, people of power and influence, take a perspective. Everyone wants to gravitate in that direction. Okay, there's a tendency for people to gravitate to a hasty decision, a quick decision. Groupthink. What else? What else about groupthink?
Tend to jump to conclusion to achieve harmony.
Bingo. You tend to jump to conclusions in order to preserve and achieve and preserve harmony. Very good. How do you overcome groupthink? Bring in an outsider. Possibly an arbitrator.
Determine in advance.
Leaders can have certain rules where leaders can't exert too much pressure. You may want to rotate leaders as well of the group. What else can you do? Encourage dissent. Encourage people to see the other side of whatever you're debating. You may even want to appoint somebody as the devil's advocate. You may have a designated person whose job it is to poke holes in the solution that the group comes up with, to force the group to think about the situation differently. Good? Groupthink, you're comfortable with it? Yes?
Do you know the symptoms of groupthink or
Give me one.
rationalization?
Okay, which is? Which is?
irrational?
It's problems encountered or arguments that members cannot ignore or rationalize away.
Right? Exactly. Okay, we'll do this, and this will lead to this market share. What if the competition gets there first? Oh, by now, they would have leaked out some information about their R&D, so that's totally impossible that it's going to happen. We all agree that it can't make any sense that they will do it, so we're on the right course of action. Something that is probable, likely, possible, we quickly dismiss through rationalization. understand, what's another one?
Self-censorship.
What is self-censorship? Stop yourself from saying what you actually think. Where you don't have to worry about telling people to be quiet, people voluntarily hold back in order not to stand out. So yes, you should know the various facets or those dimensions that identify groupthink. Okay? Risk assessment. Risk assessment. If you have a group that makes a decision, blame can be dispersed between the group. You can't fire the entire group. Okay, so from a risk perspective, we have shifts towards risky or less risky movements. What dictates a risky shift? Groups will tend to go further in the direction that they already have as an individual. So if I'm a risk taker as an individual, when I'm in a group, I will be a greater risk taker. When I am very conservative as an individual and I join a group, I become even more conservative in the group. So depending on the number of people with risky or conservative tendencies, will tend to shift the group one way or the other. If we are 5 people, 4 of us are risk takers, 1 is not. 1 will try to pull towards conservative, the 4 of us will really push towards a much riskier decision. Okay? So knowing who to put into a group is important to ensure that there's a balance in the group so you don't get these risky shifts or overly conservative shifts. Okay? Good? Comfortable? Yes?
Can you explain the risk assessment, just like what
When you put a group of people together, make sure that you understand there's risk associated with groups making decisions. Okay? If you put risky people together, risk takers together, you're going to have an extremely risky decision being made because they're going to pump each other up and they're going to become even more risky as a group than they were as individuals. Okay? If you find people that are very conservative all working together, they're going to come up with an even more conservative solution than they would have come up with on their own as individuals. That's all we're talking about. So assessing risk is assessing the level of solution that a group can generate. You have to know that your group will generate one that is more, will polarize one way or the other. Ethics, okay? What are ethical dilemmas managers face? Give me an example. Sexual harassment. What else? Bribery.
Bullying.
Bullying. Conflict of interest. That's not ethical. No. Receiving gifts. Bribery. You said that already. Good.
Giving gifts.
Nepotism. Pardon?
Giving gifts.
Giving gifts. Right? So through bribery or favors. Right? Nepotism. Hiring family members. Whistleblowing. Right? To call out the unethical behavior. What is whistleblowing?
Calling out the unethical behavior internal or external.
Yeah, so calling out that unethical behavior, internal or external sources, but to a source that you feel can make a difference, can potentially fix or bring this to light. You don't just tell anybody. You tell someone who you think can make it better. Okay? Whistleblowing means you have to send it to the right person. So it's not unethical. It's the way to call out unethical behavior. It's not an ethical dilemma. Managers are faced with having to decide whether or not to blow the whistle, but it's not an ethical dilemma. Okay? It's, do I hire my cousin over this other candidate? Right? Those are some of the ethical dilemmas that a lot of managers face. Okay? Bribery, so on. Yes, exactly. You mentioned them all. Okay? You've read from your book, know a few of them. What should organizations do to prevent sexual harassment? Policies, clear policies, clear consequences. Management has to be committed to the idea that we want to eradicate sexual harassment from the workplace. What else? Consequences? Yes, staying vigilant, right? Don't just, what is this called? The famous, the deaf ear syndrome, blah, blah, the 3 monkeys, right? No, hear no evil, see no evil, right? No, it never happens here. Not in my company, right? Oh my God, I work for a very ethical company. It could never happen here. No, stay vigilant. Look for it. If there's a sign, act immediately. Okay? Guidelines, policies, employees have to sign off on them. There needs to be a procedure, immediate action. Okay? Many things organizations can do to ensure that the harassment is dealt with immediately and is not reproduced. We're good? And our final chapter, we're doing okay, good. Conflict. What causes conflict? Why do people get into conflict? Interpersonal differences.
Disagreements that is getting
Disagreements.
to against them.
Okay. What else? From your notes. Give me your notes.
Different status,
Difference of opinion.
Status,
culture, and
different culture, value sometimes,
Ambiguity.
ambiguity,
Yes, yes.
scarce resources. Okay? So there are specific reasons interpersonal conflict can come about. And sometimes it's simply interpersonal personality. Okay? Sometimes the conflict is interpersonal. How do you manage conflict? 5 modes. If you are high on competing, low, high on competing. I'll give it away. So competing is defined as what? Competing is high interest in
Winning,
yourself, your own,
winning your own success.
okay? Think of it as axes. Okay? Your own needs, needs of others. Competing is more assertive of your own needs, less interested in the needs of others, less interested in helping the other person achieve their objectives. So if you're high on your personal assertiveness, low on collaboration, low on work cooperation, even cooperation, these are all words that we're going to look for. Okay? Low achieving the needs of others, you'd be competing. What if you're low on both? Low on your own, not interested in your own, not interested in the other. Avoiding. High on the other person achieving their goals, low on your own
Cooperative,
getting goals.
collaboration.
Accommodating. You accommodate. If you're not necessarily interested in any kind of affirming your own position, but you're interested in helping the other person achieve their objectives, you're accommodating. If you are high on both, yours and theirs, collaborating, which is the hardest but best. Okay? And if you're somewhere in the middle, you dilute. Compromise.
You didn't say convincing.
There's no convincing. No, compromise is you're unsatisfied, they're unsatisfied, but you can both live with it. You should just know the 5. Just know the 5. Okay? People to identify what they are that you just did. If I were to ask you what is the conflict resolution model or mode characterized by, you should be able to identify one of the 5. Okay? I'm not going to ask you to write an essay on it. Okay? Stressors, stress and stress reactions, in that order. Give me an example of a stressor.
Work environment.
High temperature, cold weather, too much work, noise. Okay? A stressor causes stress, which is defined as, what is it? Psychological. It's a psychological feeling, right? Right, psychological feeling. The stress is a sense of being overwhelmed. Okay, the overwhelming feeling, psychological discomfort, if you will. Okay, it's a reaction. You form a reaction to the stressor that causes the feeling of stress, the feeling of psychological distress, which is then manifested in a stress reaction, such as burnout. Burnout could be stress reaction. What is a stress reaction? There are three kinds. There's elevated blood pressure as an example of physiological.
Psychological and behavioral.
Psychological would be burnout, would be an example. And then there's behavioral. What's an example of behavioral? Would reaction.
Violence.
Violence, withdrawal, substance abuse. Okay, these are all behavioral adaptations. Now some, if you address the stress, you have short-term relief, right? If your coping mechanism is going to get a massage, you deal with the stress. You're not dealing with the stressor. Okay? So a coping mechanism that allows you to take the stress reaction and address the stressor will have greater success in getting rid of the stress than simply dealing with the symptoms. Alright? So please, yes?
Can you give an example of the psychological again?
Burnout.
Psychological
Yeah.
reaction, burnout,
Okay.
depression, where you are completely disengaged.
And it happens all in here, right?
It all happens inside your head. It's something that you don't see physically necessarily, but it happens in your head. Now, sometimes that feeling can go so far as to manifest itself physiologically, diminishing your immune system, right, making you susceptible to other illnesses. It can have an impact on cardiovascular health, which is very significant. Higher heart rate, higher blood pressure. Physiological. There's no physical. There's physiological, which includes physical, psychological, and behavioral reactions to stress. Okay? We're good?
But did you do the role personality thing?
Sorry?
Did you do the part about the role? Or not yet?
Personality. Which kind of people are more susceptible to stress?
External locus control.
People have an external locus of control. Yes. Who else? Type A personalities.
Negative effect.
People with negative affectivity. Right? What else? Why is that? They just can't handle stress?
Because they
Females.
go towards it. They go towards
They
it.
tend to gravitate towards it. They tend to perceive it. It's what they know. Okay? Of all the personality dimensions, the 5, neurotic will tend to exhibit more, have a negative impact from stress. Right? People with emotional stability tend to either deal with the stress better or not even perceive it not even perceive the stressor to be what it is. Okay? Stress is always a perception of the stressor. It's the interpretation of the stressor that leads to it. Okay? So good. External locus of control, type A personalities, people with negative affectivity. Last thing we do, sources of stress encountered by various organizational members. People at the top, what kind of stress do they encounter?
Executive.
Executive and managerial. What are the 2 aspects that we look at for them?
Role overload.
Role overload
Heavy responsibility.
and heavy responsibility. Decisions they make impact a lot of people. Role overload, they do a lot of stuff in their day. You have people down below that actually do the work. In the trenches, doing the work. What is that level? What's that called? Operative level, exactly. What are the 2 things that we most often see with operative level stressors?
Poor job design and condition.
Poor job design and
Condition.
poor working conditions, right? Usually boring, monotonous work in dangerous, hostile environments. Okay, a combination of both. Then you have people that straddle that imaginary line. Boundary role stressors, such as people in customer service roles.
Emotional, have to suppress
They have to, emotional labor, because they have to repress or suppress their true feelings in order to display, using the display rules, they have to display a particular image on behalf of an organization. They cannot truly express how they feel in a given context. Okay, so boundary. And then there are stressors that everybody feels, known as general stressors. Give me an example. Work-family conflict. Interpersonal conflict, interpersonal stress. What else?
Procedure.
Conflict.
What are some of the stressors that are general stressors?
The procedure, the work conflict, no? No.
Peer pressure.
Isn't it like a conflict within the work you're doing?
Interpersonal conflict could exist, yes. What are some of the general stressors though? We talked about, there's one specific, there's a few, there's 6 of them actually. Role ambiguity.
Oh, change. Change in safety.
Change, right? and job security or job insecurity. Anybody can face that. Okay, so the easiest ones are work-life balance are usually the ones that come up most often. Okay? Any questions? We already talked about this, behavioral, psychological, physiological reactions to stress, and you should know the techniques. So job redesign, right, for people in operative level jobs, where the job design is a problem, right, back to the job enrichment, seen through the job characteristics model, which you should know. Family-friendly HR policies, where policies take into consideration the general stressor of the work-family conflict. Stress management programs, organizations can put those forward to help people learn to manage their stress better. Okay? Courses in time management, priority management, dealing with stressful situations. Okay? Work-life balance, simple, it sounds simple enough. Work-life balance systems that organizations can put in place can include a daycare on site, providing services to employees that will take time, that save time at home. Okay? Fitness, wellness programs, right? Cardiovascular training, biofeedback mechanisms, relaxation meditation. Bless you. We're good? Okay, listen folks, I wish we had more time together because I really enjoyed having you in my class this term. Somebody turn off the camera, I think we're good. Turn off the camera. Good?
I have no idea.